Good evening, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to another episode of America in Black and White, where we discuss the issues within our communities that we're trying to help and to build. Tonight, we have a very special guest. We have Mr. Craig Chavis as our guest. Craig is an executive business coach and five-time founder with a successful exit from a blockchain startup. From personal experience, he knows that capital and advice aren't the only things entrepreneurs need to achieve founder market fit. He's helped founders build profitable business models, hire top talent, raise seven figures of follow on investments, and create engaging investor updates. Over the past 5 years, he's worked with over 1,000 founders in 28 countries, collaborated with firms like Techstars, NextCube, and Rev1 Ventures, and has guaranteed over 13.2 million in economic impact. Ladies and gentlemen, I give you Mr. Craig Chavis.
Hey
Welcome
Charles,
to the show, sir.
hey, thanks for having me. Excited to be on here and to have a really invigorating and evaluating conversation for our networks.
Well, thank you so very kindly. Is there anything you'd like to add to that bio that I just read?
No, that bio was a straight no chaser document that I sent over to you. I mean, there's a lot more to my background, and I'm sure we can get into it during this conversation. But just know that like I'm an individual with a lot of deep international experience, and I tell people you can teach what you know, but you can reproduce what you've become. And in this entrepreneurial space, there are a lot of people who are talking about what they know, but not too many people have actually practiced what they preach and preach what they've practiced. I'm the latter. And just know that like when I speak, it's speaking from experience, speaking with footprints, and it's not anything that comes from a belief. It's from actually living and doing what I've done. So excited, like I said, to have this conversation with you and our networks.
Well, I thank you so very kindly, and let's just jump right into this. Um, can you tell us what inspired you to become a business coach?
It was really simple. I wanted to become the person I wish I would have met when I started my entrepreneurial journey. It was really that simple because I started my entrepreneurial journey at a very young age. I was 15 years old, was really into music, was a teen DJ, and I just learned the power of controlling my own economic well-being, from a young age, as I mentioned. But from there, I would go on to serve in the Peace Corps in Peru, immigrated back. I opened up a distillery there basically by myself. It was a successful venture, had for 2 years. After that experience, I got into blockchain and successfully exited from my startup, after about 18 months in business. But then after all that transpired and the pandemic hit, I had a lot of time on my hands and I basically wrote a book about my entrepreneurial journey. And the words that I first wrote were, "This book is dedicated to all those who will dare to abandon the status quo, follow the road not taken, and discover the person they're truly meant to become." And so, as much as I was writing those words to readers, I was writing those words to myself because I realized that this entrepreneurial journey was a lot deeper than just making money. It was really about becoming a higher and better version of yourself. And so I just wanted to get that methodology out there. And that was really the beginning of my formal coaching and mentoring journey. And it's been, nothing but success ever since.
So tell us, what does it look like to become a business coach or be a business coach? What is it that you do?
Well, the first thing you have to do is have started successful businesses in the past. Like
Mhm.
you can't, like I said, you can't coach on something that you haven't done before. And
Right.
that's where so many coaches go astray. Like they think going and getting a certification allows them to be a coach. Like that's not true because if I'm going to guide you and teach you and help you to grow personally and professionally, I need to have done that before. So the first thing was that I built a track record of entrepreneurial and business success. What my mentor calls footprints, or what I call anchors. It's proof of concept. And so from there, I also had gained over a decade of teaching experience. I've taught sixth grade all the way through university levels, as an adjunct professor. I've created entrepreneurial curriculum, in Spanish and English. I guess I've worked with hundreds of entrepreneurs all across the world. So I had done all this prerequisite work. I had been a coach in passing before I formally, accepted that title and that role. And so for me, this was just me transforming into something I'd already been for years. So that's why I introduced myself the way I did. It's like you have to preach what you practice and practice what you preach. And so, particularly in business coaching, you need to have achieved business success, taught people before, come up with your own curriculum or materials. And that's what legitimizes you and makes you a good coach.
Can you share a success story from one of your clients?
Oh yeah, super simple. So one of my clients is a former NFL athlete, who will go unnamed, but I took him under my wing as he was going through an accelerator program with a local VC firm. He had never started a business before, but he had all the characteristics of would make a very successful entrepreneur, being a former athlete. He's very hungry, he's very focused, he's very strategic, he's calculated, but more importantly, he's an excellent networker. So through my coaching and my accelerator program called Chaos to Cash Flow, he wound up getting, $100,000 check from this VC firm to kick off the development process for the prototyping of his startup. And he was the first ever recipient of this funding through this program, which is called Grow to Scale. So he wouldn't have gotten that money if it wouldn't have been for the coaching, the pitch support, and most importantly, the internal preparation that he needed to become the person worthy of getting that check.
So is his business still thriving to this day?
Yes, his company is called Scalaware, and it's a powered football training equipment company.
Oh,
And yeah,
wow.
he's raised additional capital, and he's built a strong team of not just him and his wife anymore, but now they have three other members on board.
Oh, wow. Congratulations to him.
Mhm.
Um, what are the most common challenges your clients face, and how do you help them overcome these?
Well, the most common the most common problem clients have is that they want change, but they don't want to change, which is oxymoronic. Because how can you want change? How can you want to see different results in your life when you're doing the same stuff every day, which is classic insanity? So the first thing is really helping clients understand that like the person that they see in the mirror is their best friend or their worst enemy. And the ones that can accept that, can then begin the process of doing that inner work while also doing the outer work as well. Because in business, particularly in the beginning, when you're first starting out, your business is a reflection of you. So if you're broken, if you're not organized, if you're not strategic, if you're all over the place, well, your business will be so. And this is why so many businesses fail is that they, the leaders, don't recognize that like they have to do the inner work first so that they can then work on their business and on themselves to see, results like more money, more growth, more clients, more customers, whatever you say it. So that's the number one issue is that people want change, but they don't want to change. And then a second big issue is that a lot of clients focus on what they want instead of what they need. And there's a lot of gobbledygook, a lot of garbage, on social media telling people they can have seven streams of income. They don't have to work. All they have to do is manifest and think positive, and all this money is going to come their way. And that ain't the truth. You may want all this money, but what you need is systems. You may want all this money, but what you need is discipline. You may want all this money, but you need focus. And so, as long as people are focusing on what they want instead of what they need, they'll never get to actually what they want because they're lacking those fundamental principles to help them get what they want. So, a lot of this sounds basic, it sounds repetitive, but when people skip steps, they skip lessons. And when they skip lessons, they skip learnings. And when they skip learnings, they fail. And that's why so many people fail. They're in their own way.
So help us out with this and tell us just briefly when you talk about a system and methods that people should use, what is the system that they should use? Let's say, let's give us 1 through 5. How do you want to start this system and how you make it work?
Yeah. So the first thing is, people have to understand the business of business. Like business is a science. Like business isn't something that is accidental. It's something that happens on purpose. In the business of business, you have to know marketing, branding, positioning, sales, leadership, operations, product development, research and development. I mean, there's a whole bunch of fundamental principles of business that one needs to understand. Like that's a given. The second kind of nugget is then to understand the business of your industry, because every industry you get into has its own nuances.
Yes.
Real estate's different than consumer product goods, is different than tech, is different than climate, is different than agriculture, right? You have to understand your industry because there's certain principles within your industry that you have to follow. Because if you get too cute in the beginning, you're going to fail because you have to abide by the rules of engagement in your industry. And then, kind of like the third layer is the business of you. Like, who are you? Most people don't know who they are. So they don't know how to show up in the world in their authentic self.
Oh,
And
wow.
as I said in the beginning, your business is a reflection of you and your principles, your values. But if that isn't being crystallized, then you're walking blind. So, like I said, in that order, business of business, understand the science of business. Because when you go into businesses, 85% of businesses, no, 80% of businesses are dysfunctionally functional, which means that like they don't work. 15% of businesses are functionally functional, which means that they work. But only 5% of businesses are effectively functional, which means they work well. But a major reason is because people don't know the business of business. They don't know the business of the industry, but even worse, they don't understand the business of themselves.
So I'm gonna, since you do so many things here, I'm gonna kind of like touch on a whole bunch of things, as I go in like in a round robin. So
Yeah, oh, for
forgive me if
sure.
it seems like it's out of touch, but
Yeah, let's
um,
do it.
what motivated you to start teaching finance?
It goes back. I mean, within our community, money is so misunderstood. Once again, it's one of those business of business things. Like it's something you have to learn. It's a skill.
Mhm.
And it goes back to one of my mentors' formulas. He's like, Craig, have you ever heard of the PIE formula? He's like, it's an acronym, PIE. And I'm like, no, sir, I don't. I've never heard of that. He's like, okay, P stands for performance, I stands for image, E stands for exposure. And he's like, Craig, which variable do you think is most important? And me being a former Division One athlete, I'm like, of course, P, performance. How hard you work, that's what helps you get further in life. And he's like, no, son, you're wrong. He's like, performance is a given. You have to work hard. Like that's a prerequisite. He said, your image, this is also a given. He's like, you have to present yourself in a certain way, but more importantly, you have to be perceived in a certain way too. It's not just how you think you look, it's how other people, judge you on your appearance and how you show up. You need to have a good brand. That's a given. But he's like, what's not a given is exposure. And this is exposure to access, to information, to people, to resources, to knowledge. And he's like, the more exposure you have, the faster you'll be able to elevate and grow personally and professionally, and the wiser you'll be. And so when it comes to like finance, you see so many erroneous, patterns happening, in our community. And it's because people haven't been exposed to how money works and how they should leverage money as a tool to work for them to generate wealth, because we live in a system of capitalism. Capital is money, ism is system. It's the system of money that we live in. And if you're ignorant of how money and ignorant of how capital works, good luck. I know navigating, this world. So for me, I had to learn about money and how it worked the hard way, through some of these business adventures. But this, it put me on the right track to allow me to taste at certain points in my life time freedom, financial freedom, and location freedom. And after tasting those three things, it's like, okay, I have to get back to this experience because it was the epitome of power, being able to wake up in Peru and have my business working for me. If I had any issue, I had the ability to solve it because I had the time and the bandwidth to either solve it myself or pay somebody to solve it for me because I had the capital and the know how of how money worked. And then I wasn't tied to a location. I could live and work wherever I wanted because I had systems working for me. But it wasn't until I got exposed to all of this that I really understood it. So that's why I feel called to really teach finance because it's something that needs to be known.
So, how do you make complex financial concepts accessible to your students?
Just break it down. I mean, there's genius in simplicity.
Mhm.
That's what I've learned. People who really understand what they talk about break it down into actionable nuggets of wisdom, which is the subtitle of my book that I wrote. And like I said, students, people aren't stupid. Kids aren't stupid. They're actually very, very smart. They're very intuitive. But when you can break complex stuff down into simple steps and you make it understandable, that's when everything changes, especially when people can articulate what you said back to them in their own way. And that's part of what coaching and teaching is all about. It's not necessarily imparting information onto people, it's getting them to realize the truth and connect the dots for themselves and getting them to regurgitate that back to you in a way that they understand. And so, like I said, money is not rocket science. That's one of the big deceptions out here. Is like people think money is complex. They think the system and banking systems complex, and it's some ethereal, unknown alien world, and that couldn't be more of a lie. And I believe that's why a lot of people don't want to study this stuff because they think it's complex. They think it's super sophisticated, but it really comes down to a few principles about banking, about interest, about saving, about investing, about keeping more than you make, spending less than what you make. I mean, it's not anything extraordinarily special. And once people understand that and break it down in a simple way that like I do and other people do, everything changes.
Okay. Um, can you share a memorable teaching moment that had a significant impact on your students?
Is there just one that I can come up with? I would say I was recently brought into an 11th grade class, which used workbook, as kind of the foundations for their entrepreneurship and innovation curriculum. One of the biggest nuggets that students realize is I have a chapter in my book that's called Closed Mouths Don't Get Fed. And it was basically the story of how I raised, 5 figures of money online via crowdfunding to help launch my business. And people were kind of blown away. Like, how did you raise this much money in just 30 days for your business? And I told them, closed mouths don't get fed. I knew that if I needed help, I had to ask for it. And I had to do this repeatedly over and over and over again. And I got rejected over and over and over again. But through those periods of rejection, this is what taught me how to refine my story, how to ask questions, how to build connections with the audience and investors I was talking to. And it's just like, all this money that you want is on the other side of doing hard work. But it's like that hard work really isn't that hard. It's just you showing up every day and being hard headed and not taking no as a final answer. And if you stay persistent and you stay consistent and you refine your story and you get better at sales more and more, the world becomes like your oyster and you can unlock a lot of access to those pockets that were once closed off to you.
Now, I actually thought about trying to do crowdfunding before, and
Mhm.
that's a technique I don't think I ever actually learned how that worked because I know as you say when you ask and so forth, isn't there like some particular um what's that you things that you have to reveal or something like that to make something like that happen? Like, exactly what does that work? How does that work?
Well, crowdfunding is a misnomer. It's really crowd selling. It's
Okay.
all sales. It's all storytelling. And
Mhm.
what you're doing is you're trying to make the person on the other side of the screen the hero of that story. Like, hey person, hey prospect, hey investor, you are the star. This product is going to help you, or this service is going to help you get what you want. Now, I'm selling a distillery. A distillery was super hard because A, I can't ship you liquor. B, this product was being made in another country. So it's highly regulated, and I couldn't really give people like a transactional benefit. That's oftentimes what they do on crowdfunding. It's like, hey, I have this backpack. Um, Here's a pre-sale. You can buy this backpack at a discount, and that's what people do oftentimes. But for me, I couldn't do that. I had to be creative, and so I pulled on people's heartstrings. I'm this Peace Corps volunteer. I'm helping these farmers make a sustainable living wage. You can be forever part of my distillery. I literally sold bricks in my building. I'm like, you can etch your name. I'll etch your name on these bricks, and you'll be a part of my distillery forever. Like, I got super creative, but I really was able to pull in people's heartstrings and sell them that they were going to be a pivotal part of this journey, which was going to create impact for the community that I was, building my distillery in. So it's like when you can do that, you can open up so many like coffers and pockets, but you have to sell people on the fact that like this thing that you're selling or creating or offering is going to benefit them in some way. And that's what I was able to do.
Hmm. So, what led you to pursue a career in consulting?
It came naturally. After you've accumulated certain level of experience, you start to realize that people want to know what's in between your two ears. And it's like when all these people are saying, hey, can I pick your brain, or can you help me, or how can I raise money, how can I start a business, how can I do X? Well, that's an opportunity for me to engage and help people. But we all know that like value isn't free. I didn't go through all this hardship and experience just to like give our information away for free. In actuality, free has no value, because when you give away a lot of free value, people, they you have to pay for people to pay attention. Unfortunately, right, wrong, or indifferent. So it was a matter of two things. It's like, a, I wanted to be a consultant. I wanted to help people, but then people also were requesting my help, and they wanted access to some of the information I had in my brain. So when there was demand for information I had, that presented a business opportunity.
Can you describe a particularly challenging consulting project and how you approached it?
Yeah. Oh, it's super simple. I mean, my first ever 4 or 5 figure client happened on accident. I got put on some type of email list for this women owned entrepreneurial accelerator, and they were requesting speakers for this marketing conference that they were having. And like, this was back in 2019. And so I responded back to this women owned organization. And of course, they're like, okay, well, you're a man. We don't accept men consultants or coaches. Have a good day. But I was persistent, and I was like, okay, I can add a lot of value. I've worked with a lot of women. I coached a lot of women entrepreneurs all over the world, but
Uh,
they were still radio silent. But I knew this would be a really big opportunity because this was a really major brand. Long story short, after 6 months of like pestering them, one woman, I guess, got ill, who was going to be a part of this conference. And they're like, okay, you've been bugging us. Here's your opportunity, put up or shut up. You have to do a presentation. It's going to be free. You're not going to get paid for it. But if this works out, we'll see what happens. And I absolutely knocked the presentation out the ballpark. So much so that like it was the most heavily requested replay they had for that particular online conference. And so that led to basically a 1 year, um, you know, 15, 20K, engagement to do some coaching and consulting for these women-owned entrepreneurs. So that was particularly difficult because this was me landing like my first kind of like big fish contract and big fish client, as a full-time coach and consultant. But it paid off, and that domino effect led me to more clients of bigger or equal value.
Oh wow! Congratulations to you. I'm sure that you felt really, really great after all those clients start rolling in.
Oh yeah, 100%. Because the sales cycle. I mean, starting a consulting or coaching practice, it's not sexy. It is very hard, and especially like when you don't come from like a major network or you don't have a lot of insider connections. I mean, I was building relationships ice cold, which is probably the worst thing to do. But when you have no choice, you have to do it. But when you have the ability to convert a cold client, somebody who never knew you, into somebody who's paying you, that's when you know you have a whole new level of business acumen. Because unfortunately, a lot of people, they need warm introductions. They need friends and family. They need insider networks. They need some type of discriminatory factor to get them a leg up in business, which isn't wrong. I mean, you kind of want as many discriminatory factors as possible. But then again, a lot of these discriminatory factors get people in who aren't qualified to do what they do into business opportunities. So for me, it's like I always try to get in off of merit. Like, okay, yeah, you may know me. Yeah, I may have a brand now, but with my track record that like I overproduce and like I really create results for the people I work with. It's not because I went to a fancy school. It's not because I know somebody or I'm a relative or a friend to somebody. It's because I actually do good work. And that's what I want to be known for.
Oh wow! So, how do you ensure that your consulting advice is both practical and actionable?
Oh well, it's proven. I mean, once you've gone through hundreds and thousands of use cases with people, you begin to pull out like the fundamental nuggets that are applicable to everybody. And for me, I worry less about the techniques. I focus more on the principles. And these principles are things that everybody at certain stages of their business, whether it's launch stage, build stage, or growth stage, everybody has to abide by these principles. Because if they don't, they'll fail and they won't be able to get on to the next level. So this is why it's so imperative. Like whenever you work with a coach or work with a consultant, like make sure that like they have a lot of reps with a lot of different clients. Because the more reps they have, the more likelihood that like they have some type of methodology, some type of framework, or some type of system that is proven to get results as long as clients stay the course. And this is where a lot of clients mess up is like they want to get antsy and they don't want to follow the program or the framework. And it's like everything is contingent upon you doing this framework in a certain way at a certain time. And if you try to circumvent that, it's going to break the process. So it's been very interesting seeing how people try to take shortcuts or try to say, oh, I don't need to do that, I've already done that before. But like when you repeat, you refine, and when you refine, you get results. So trust the process, and if it's proven, stick to it, and you'll be getting the results that you're supposed to get.
So, what drives your passion for community work?
Because that's all we got, man.
Mhm.
Community. I mean, what is life without community? I mean, we can't go through life on our own. I mean, we all know that, like, okay, we come into this world by ourselves and we may leave by ourselves, but like while we're here, community is everything. I mean, it's the backbone of society. And when you see communities being broken and being destroyed and, people being fragmented, single mothers, single fathers, orphans, all this broken society, it just leads to chaos. And it's like, there's power in numbers. And this whole myth of like hyper individualism is something that has done a lot of damage to our community because we don't have a system of privilege to fall back on when that hyper individualism inevitably fails. And when you see people really running stuff, like people really in power, they're not doing stuff by themselves. They have communities, they have support networks, they have think tanks, they have systems, but they're telling you, you could do all this stuff alone. But that's to get you fragmented and to have you be a lone wolf, and you're an easy target. But like when you're in community, there's power in numbers. And for me, it's like I wouldn't be here without the support of my community, albeit it pretty small. It's still something that I respect and admire.
As you mentioned that, it's one thing that I've actually been stating here, shouting from the rooftop, like maybe the last month or so. But you know, our purpose here at American Black and White is to build those communities, those underserved communities, because when you have that individualism and you have people that try so much that now they're just all beaten down and there's nothing they could do. We're here to actually help connect dots for those communities in order to build them up. And when you mention the individualism, I think a lot of us, especially a lot of us as business owners, um, maybe just not realizing, but there's a lot of there's a lot of people that are running out here thinking that if they've already started something that they feel is much more successful, they really don't have a need to work with anybody else.
Hmm.
And I'm just finding that a little bit awkward. Like, as a business coach, have you actually run across these kind of individuals and you try to instill the values of collaboration?
Well, all the time. But like what I've come to learn now as a more experienced coach is
Mhm.
when I run across that individualism, I know that like they're not ready because they haven't been burned enough yet. They haven't gotten punched in the mouth by that fallacy that think they can do it on their own. It's like, okay, go do that. And in X amount of time come back if you can. Because you will probably be out of business very quickly, with that mentality. And I tell people ignorance isn't bliss, it's costly.
Ooh.
And sometimes what you don't know, it will come back and teach you a lesson that you might not have wanted to learn, but you needed to learn.
Mhm.
And so for me, like I said, being experienced now, when I run into people with that mentality, I'm like, okay, they're a rookie, they're inexperienced, they need to go let the universe teach them something. And if they're willing and after they've learned, then we could come back and re-engage. But like I don't even um, you know consult or work with people who aren't experienced and who think like that.
Wow. So, can you share a project or initiative you're particularly proud of in your community work?
It goes back to a lot of this entrepreneurial mindset work with the next generation of leaders in our community. I mean, I'm still young in my opinion. I'm 34. I got grays coming in. I'm a gray early. It's part of my DNA. But like I love doing this entrepreneurial mindset work, in the middle schools, high schools, and universities. I mean, just have to keep this going because the way this economy and the way this world's going, you're going to have to be entrepreneurial in some way, and especially the way you think and perceive the world. I mean, so many things are unstable. You're going to have to be creative. You're going to have to navigate this volatile, uncertain, complex, and ambiguous world that we live in. People with entrepreneurial mentalities and dispositions can better navigate this treacherous, uncertainty that we're going through. Whereas somebody who's used to stability, who's more fixed, who's more rigid, they're going to get crushed when all this change inevitably finds them. So for me, I feel really called to be in these schools and promoting this entrepreneurial mindset. It's not just about starting a business, it's a way of thinking, it's a way of living, it's a way of being. And being able to do this from like a black male perspective is super important because like less than 1% of all educators from like kindergarten through universities are black men. So it's really hard to be what you can't see. and I can count on my hands. I'm a very highly educated man. I have my master's degree. I had less than like five black male teachers out of the hundreds of teachers that I had. So, being able to come teach from like a masculine black perspective is something that's invaluable for everybody, not just the young black boys and black girls that I run across, but everybody, needs to see this. So I just feel called to do it.
Wow. Now that was really profound. When in some other areas here, as you was pointing that out, is when you look at, you say you're 34, right?
Hmm.
And so the young men and young ladies in your age range or your generation are our future leaders. So have you run across many in the same age range as you that are looking to build community, but also thinking entrepreneurial in order to build?
I mean, we exist. I mean, the thing about social media is that it's changed the landscape. I mean, there's a lot more visibility. Um, and the tough thing is like, yeah, of course, I'm definitely not the only one. There's plenty of other, millennials out here who are primed for leadership positions, who are entrepreneurs, who are doing entrepreneurial work. It's just the thing is that you don't know who's like really about it. Like if it's just an image, a facade, or if it's really who people are. And what we're finding out very, very quickly is that the longevity of people who are in this world isn't that long, because they find out quickly that it's not a game. It's not just something you can put on Instagram or TikTok or whatever and just say you're doing this, or you created some AI generated book, or you said you're an entrepreneur. There may be a quantity of people doing this work, but the quality is slim. I'll say that.
Well, I mean, yeah, I understand, and I know that there are several that's in your age range. But I mean, have you run across any that's in your age range that are not thinking entrepreneur or building community?
Oh yeah, plenty, plenty. I
Mhm.
mean, it's just it's not something that's a given. To assume that like everybody, in my demographic or even in my space are thinking and operating like this. It's still the exception to the rule.
Mhm.
But that's how it's always been. I mean, I'm typically on the bleeding edge of a lot of things. I'm an early adopter. I'm rebellious. It's like I'm not somebody who's a laggard who just waits for critical mass, to hit and become a new status quo. It's like, I like to redefine the status quo. And
Right.
like people who are really in this space, they're at the forefront, but just by nature and through numbers and through history, that like this is the minority and not the majority.
Well, well, that's something that it's going to take some time, but that's something that I want to create a project of the sort to actually seek out the pluses and the minuses, for this new age leadership,
Hmm.
because those are the people that I feel like they really need to have that mentorship and that leadership to help them to understand who they are and what they can do. Because I know not everybody is going to fit that scale. That's a
For sure.
given.
Hmm.
But I know that there's a lot of them out there that just need that little push where you can actually help to open up that brain power. So when it opens, it's like it's so much that it scares them.
No, I know. I agree. I agree. And some people just don't know who they are. They don't know they need that extra nudge. And like I said, there's nothing that you said that I can refute. Because, like I said, somebody like me, I'm very proactive. I don't need anybody to prod me. Like, but do I need mentorship? Do I need guidance? Do I need to be underneath the wings of people more experienced than me? For sure, and I know that, and I actively seek that. But you're right, there definitely is, a large numbers of people who are just unaware. Like I said, they just haven't been exposed. They don't know what they don't know. and that doesn't make them any lesser than. It's just it puts them in this like that this kind of no man's land in a sense. But I definitely am optimistic that if more information and more conversations like this become the norm, then more people will partake in a lot of the community work like we do, and abdicate that individualistic crap to really help more people outside of themselves.
And so, how do you balance your professional career with your community involvement?
Easier said than done, because I mean it's really tough to separate the two, because like they're one and the same, because like my work is impact first,
Mhm,
and impact is not something that can be done in a vacuum.
mhm,
You need other people to create impact, at least real impact. You have a lot of people saying they're putting out impact, but their outcomes, the number of people who went through your accelerator or coaching is irrelevant if no results happen. If they didn't grow personally, nor did their business grow, then it was a waste. Giving somebody a certificate means nothing. That's not impact. But I can go on a rant for that. But for me, the work I do is intimately tied with community, because like for me, business is about creating value, and that through creating that value, that's where you get the monetary gains from. Whereas other people look at business as very extractive. It's like, how do I take from people? How do I leech from people? How do I create money out of nothing, and make billions off of companies that lose hundreds of millions of dollars a year? That's not how I do business. For
mhm,
me, it's about, okay, how did I solve somebody else's problem? And because I solved the problem, because I made their life better, I got compensated for that, which is a fair trade. you know, because they wouldn't have been able to solve the problem without, my intervention or somebody else's, right? So to me, it's like, of course, I have my boundaries, because I believe boundaries set you free. But my work, professionally, is very, very tied to the community.
mhm. That's a good thing, and
Mm.
I'm really proud of you, and I'm glad to hear you say that because I think when it comes to, and I shouldn't say I think, but when it comes to our communities, there's a lot of short sightedness. There's a lot of resources that are not there. So when things are short and there's a lack thereof, of course, we've always got to be innovative and creative as to how we make things happen. I have this is outside of what you do, but I just want your opinion on this.
Okay.
Tell me, what do you think are some of the things that we can do most? That's kind of small but have a large impact in building our communities.
Yeah, that is a loaded question, Charles. Man, it starts at home, really.
Mhm,
And that's why so many of our homes are broken, because people know that, like, if the home is broken, then the family's broken, and then the community's broken, and the society's broken. But it's like, if you could take care of like your home, and take care of yourself first, then take care of like your home, you get those two things together, it's just going to be like a ripple effect of positivity. Because like right now, it's just so many people are broken individually, so many homes are broken, schools broken, churches, you name it, it's a ripple effect. But like when you think about what a community is, it's an amalgamation or grouping of individuals.
right.
So if those fundamental unit building blocks are busted, I mean, kiss the community goodbye.
Mhm,
So that's why it goes back to what I was talking about. Like, part of like coaching, like, you have to do the inner work. You
mhm,
can't go out here, telling people to do X, Y, or Z, but then you're a hypocrite doing the opposite of it. Is it doesn't work like that. But that's what happens a lot, in our communities. A lot of people are talking and yapping about doing, one X, Y, or Z, but they're living a completely false life or doing the opposite.
mhm.
So it's like, okay, once you focus on self and like your household, if you're doing that, okay, you're miles ahead of the game. So that's how I would answer your question.
So basically, you're saying home is just the beginning, and that's just the base.
Hmm.
Okay.
Yeah.
How do you tailor your coaching approach to fit the unique needs of each client?
Simple. Ask a lot of really good discovery questions. I mean, that's how any engagement starts. Is I tell people I have had the same six best friends my entire life. Their names are who, what, when, where, why, and how. And when you ask those questions, in the right manner, in the right way, at the right time, you can really figure out, okay, where is your client at? Where do they want to go? And then you figure out how to get them there. And then once you have those three data points, it's relatively simple because like I know where you're at, I know what you want to accomplish, and then we reverse engineer that to figure out a game plan or roadmap to get you there. And now for me, I'm not doing that work. I'm here to help you get clarity to keep you accountable. But that's the work that the client has to do. And that's where so many people fall off is like, they want an enabler to sustain their bad habits, which, isn't going to happen. But then they don't realize that like coaching, because coaching and consulting are different. A coach doesn't do the work for you. A coach positions you for success. You have to execute. When I was playing D1 football, like my coach trained me, he helped me do the fundamentals, the footwork, he taught me the defense. And when I was in the game and he gave me the signal, okay, that positioned me for success, but I still had to execute. I still had to stop the receiver on the other end of the ball. He couldn't do that. His knee was all busted up. He was an ex NFL athlete. He couldn't run, he couldn't sprint 2 feet. I had to do the work.
Right.
So that's what you do with coaching. You figure out where people are at, you figure out where they want to go, you reverse engineer that, and then you help them create that plan. And you do a little work to help kick them off and keep them accountable, but you don't do the work. But as a consultant, it's different. It's more business angled because a consultant is paid to deliver some type of work, whether it's a report, whether it's a project, a presentation. You're paid to do something, but still, you still need to find a competent client. You still can't just do everything for them. They still have to give you information. You still have to position them for success. It's still a working arrangement. But I'd be remiss if I didn't separate the difference between coaching and consulting. But that's how I would work with my client as a coach.
Um, what are the key financial principles you believe everyone should understand?
Hmm. Number one is that revenue and profit are not the same. Making money and keeping money are not the same. People always talk about six figures. Okay, making six figures is a lot different than keeping six figures,
Mhm.
which is a lot different than saving six figures, which is a lot different than investing six figures.
Right.
People have to, you have to know your numbers cold. Like you have to live a profitable lifestyle. You have to really live below your means. If you're making $50,000 a year, that's fine. But don't be living, a $300,000 lifestyle. Like that's gonna get you got. Keeping up with the mythical Joneses isn't something you should be doing. So, like I said, understand the difference between making money, keeping money, saving money, and investing money. Another financial principle is that time is gold and money is silver. It's an oxymoron that goes over people's heads. It's like, how is time worth more than money? Well, it's because time is finite. You never know when your clock is going to expire. And time is something you'll never get back. But money is something you can always get back. And through having a more experienced and deeper life, this is what positions you to make more money over time. Because there's this fallacy that you have to become a bajillionaire in your 20s or in your 30s. Like that's all you're seeing on those social medias. Like I started this startup and made $1 billion by the age of 30. Well, thumbs up.
Mhm.
Actually, most people's like prime earning age is between like 40 and 55.
Exactly.
And that's because you have experience.
Exactly.
You've made those stupid mistakes, in your 20s and 30s,
Mhm.
and maybe you've leveled up in your career. And now you're an executive pulling in multiple six figures, or you're a business owner that you've been burned a couple times in your youth, but now you're on your third or fourth business, and you know exactly what not to do.
Right.
So
But
it's like,
do you think most people really learn, as life is going on, as to adjust and to make things that much better for themselves and others that are around them?
I hate to think in the binary mode, but it's like either you're using your muscles or you're losing your muscles.
Hmm.
And that's just what I've come to understand. Either you're getting better or you're getting broken, or even worse than broken, like you're just atrophying, and like you're losing your strength, because the system works for a lot of people. It used to, at least. You have a
Oh,
cushy,
right. It's
yeah, you have a cushy 9 to 5. You're getting consistent checks. You don't have to worry about much. Everything's there for you. It works, but the game is changing very, very quick. So I think that the people who are more proactive, more entrepreneurial, and who are very more intuitive and introspective are going to succeed better. But I just see that you're either getting better or you're not. There's really no in between.
um what industries do you specialize in and why?
Mm. So I would say overall, like I am an industry agnostic by nature. And that's because when I looked at the businesses that I've started, one was entertainment, DJing, another was distilling, which is like consumer product goods, alcohol. Blockchain was its own world, and now getting into like the coaching, consulting, and entrepreneurial education.
Mhm.
Those are other worlds in their sense. But if I would say I have a specialty, um, you know, product based consumer product goods is something that not only do I have expertise in, but I really love CPG. And then also, too, like in the service business, like I think I'm an expert in the coaching and consulting business. So probably those two industries, consumer product goods, and then professional services would be industries that I would be able to stand out in.
Okay. Um, what impact do you hope to achieve through your community efforts?
The impact, that's a really good question, because it's kind of hard to quantify, in a sense, because like it's very altruistic, some of the work that I do,
Yeah.
making somebody's life better, exposing them to information that they didn't know about, um, you know having people of color be exposed to like a young black male teacher.
Mhm.
You can't really quantify any of those things. And oftentimes, I think some of these intangible metrics are much more important. So for me, I think I have to do a better job at like quantifying or maybe locking in what I want, um, my impact to do. Because, like I said, it's just saying like, hey, I want a million high school students to have read my book. Great, that's an outcome. Like, is that really impact? And so, like, I'm kind of going through like this phase of myself redefining what I believe impact to be. So I don't think I'll be able to answer that question per se,
Okay.
because it's still mushy, it's still soft, it's still being, you know, baked into my mind exactly what I want, my legacy to be. So we'll have to schedule a rain check for that question.
Okay. Well, let's do this,
Hmm.
because let's say your approach
Hmm.
is your approach to do peace, 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 and peace. And to some extent, um, they all have a correlation with each other, and they have one common goal. Is
Hmm.
that the way you see your entrepreneurship, your business skills, your community skills to work, and how you'd like to see the success that you're seeking come from those things.
Yeah, 100%. Because like long gone are the days where like you can just have a direct, just like single file way of touching someone's life and getting a result. I mean, there's so many distractions.
Mhm.
One of the biggest things that my clients have told me is like the way I redefine competition. Because like people used to think competition was other people doing what you do, and they used to think that indirect competition was people doing something similar to what you do. All that is trash. All that's out the window. Your competition today is anybody who takes attention away from you,
Mhm.
which is damn
Wow.
near everything.
Wow.
And
That,
and so yeah, exactly, it blows people's mind.
mhm.
So that's why people are like, why are you doing so many different things? Why you have so many different angles, different approaches? Is because you need it. Because people's minds are mush. People can barely think for more than 5 seconds, thanks to TikTok. And it's like you gotta hit people from different angles, man. And so I would say ultimately, if I can get you to realize that you are the entrepreneur of your life, okay, mission accomplished. Because now I know you have this disposition and understanding that like, okay, my life is a business and I'm the product of that, and I have agency over the choices that I make. Once I can see that, it's like, okay, mission accomplished.
What is the most rewarding aspect of being a business coach?
Mm. The most rewarding aspect is hearing people tell you how you changed their life and how you help them to see things or understand things that they once thought were oblivious, but now they're not. I mean, it's just incredible. Like that, that's what coaching really is. It's helping people to see the unseen. And when people can acknowledge that, but then more importantly, embody that, like when you see people change and develop and grow and actually, become this thing that they didn't think they could have become. Like to me, that's the most rewarding. Like that's real change. Like that's behavioral change. Like that's life change. That's stuff I seen and experienced like in the Peace Corps. And that's what makes the Peace Corps so difficult, is because you're trying to change people's lives.
Mhm.
But you can't do that your own. They have to change their lives. You're just the catalyst to help them do that. And when you do that, it doesn't get any deeper, it doesn't get any better than that.
Hmm. How do you incorporate real world examples into your finance lessons?
I use my story, my own personal story,
Mhm.
first and foremost.
Mhm.
I'm very transparent with a lot of the, financial things that I've dealt with, that I've been through. I've made a lot of money, lost a lot of money. I know what it feels like to be broke. I know what it feels like to be financially free, and everything in between.
Right.
So when you're able to use your own story and lead with examples instead of saying, "Oh, hey, Johnny, my client, made $125,000 and he did this and that," it's like that's all fake, But when you can be that example, that living example, it's a game changer.
Hmm. How do you build trust with your consulting clients?
Hmm. The trust is like, first, it's living by example. One of the first things I do is give clients my book and my workbook so like they can read and experience my story and understand that, like, okay, like I've been where you're going. So that credibility is huge. But then more importantly, it's not about me telling you how good I am. It's getting other people to vouch for me. And that's why reviews and testimonials are so powerful, because it's like, no, Craig really did help me. And Craig looks just, oh, not Craig, no, I look just like you. I am a person of color just like you, and look at where I'm at now. So testimonials and reviews are a big way to, build trust.
How do you engage and motivate others to get involved in community projects?
I just simple have simple conversations with people. I don't think this is something that you can force. People have to already want to do it. It already has to be within them. Because I tell people there's three ways to control people: fear, coercion, or respect. Fear is you scare people to do something. Coercion is you bribe people, but respect is people do it themselves. And I only want to work with people in the community who want to be there because they want to be there. I don't want to have to bribe you. I don't want to have to scare you. And I don't even do any of those two things anyways. So yeah, just straight up respect. Like, this is what I'm about. This is the result that we can make. And if it's within you to want to participate, you'll do it or you'll not. That simple.
Okay. I'm going to take a little break here and I want to play a game with you.
Okay.
I'm going to say some words.
Hmm.
And after each word that I say, I want to what is the first thing that comes to your mind?
Okay. Got you.
You ready?
Yes.
Money,
Concept.
business,
Systems.
rich,
Wealthy.
race,
Ethnicity.
building,
Blocks.
work,
Effort.
people,
Humans.
reprimand,
Hypocrisy.
community,
Together.
broke.
Mentality.
So, with those words and your response to those words, how does that fit with you as to where you are and the things that you do?
It, the complex fluidity of what I do. I mean, it's a lot easier said than done, but a lot of this has to deal with perception. It also has to deal a lot with timing. It also has to deal with situations, financial, economic, social. It's very, very complex, and it's very hard, and it's very muddy. And it takes a special person to be able to, work in this space. But for me, I feel called to do it and I also enjoy it, even though some days it drives me crazy. So, like I said, it's complex.
Yeah, so, but knowing today's world, as we're now here in the 21st century, everything now is complex.
Hmm.
There are only complex individuals, and there are a lot of those, but there also are a lot of people that are very, very simplified. And
Hmm.
it's like everything has to be on the easy press. When it comes to that, how do you think those people shape up from the business perspective, the work perspective, the community perspective? How do you think those people shape up?
Ooh, another loaded question because, like I said, not trying to be a hypocrite myself. I feel there's a difference between complex and complicated.
That's
To me,
true.
complex is natural. It's a series of steps that may seem illogical or irrational, but they have to happen in order to make something work. Like, life is complex,
Mhm.
but like, does it have to be complicated? Complicated to me is when people throw in extra crap to like hold
Just
people back,
because.
or
Just
to slow you down just because. So simplicity helps to remove the complication to get it down to a complex, natural, state of being. So, like I said, there was a lot there. I mean, people who just want to be on the easy button, I mean, good luck, because things are getting more convoluted day by day. But if you can break stuff down to their simplest elements, that will make life more enjoyable. Because there are some people out here who thrive on complication, like they get high off it, they make money off of it. But for me, it's like, no, I see myself as like this captain or this ship cutting through the muck of the complications, to make things easy for people to understand and navigate. Because life doesn't have to be complicated. It can be very, very simple and enjoyable.
Now, I say that to say because I'm going to tell you, all of my life, I've been a complex individual. And for me, I don't thrive on the complexity, but this is the thing about it is that for me, I need to have the challenge of something that's going to make me move and think. If it's very simple, I can't do it. That's just the opposite, right?
Well, it's fair. No, it's fair. I've heard a lot of people say that.
If it's very simple, I just cannot do it. And so the thing is, I think sometimes when you have those kind of people, I think sometimes it kind of like brings on a different variable that sometimes people take it the wrong way. What I say that to say is because I'm asking you this is because you are an individual that's thriving and doing a lot of complex things, you know, but you like to make sure it stays simple and you easily flow through it. Do you see my point?
I do.
See, this is what I'm trying to understand as to like when we thrive and we have that same goal, right? Why do you think the differences sometimes get in the way?
Hmm. People's mentality,
Okay. Okay.
humanity. I mean, I would be remiss to say that like if my own humanity didn't get my own way. I mean, like there's stuff I go through every day that just like it just blows my mind. Like, why do people have to do stupid stuff? Like, why do have to people just throw out bananas to see if you can slip on it or not? It's like why? No, that's what irritates me. It's like things could be so much better if people just didn't do complicated, just dumb stuff. But that's the thing. A lot of this world is built upon that, monetizing people's pain. You know, the bureaucracy. Making stuff 10 times harder than it has to be. And so for me, that's where my like rebellious nature comes out. And I'm just like, no, enough with this. Like, let's just cut out the crap. So it's a hot mess. I mean, humanity is the ultimate riddle.
This is why you have to be a perfect example of what it is to be a successful individual, a successful young man, a successful young black man that's able to weave and wove your way through all the thickness. You're still able to find your way through and to make the difference in where you want to be. This is what I'm talking about. This is the
Yeah,
whole premise. And what
yeah.
the whole premise is that when you see young people like yourself that's able to like see it, feel it, and make it happen.
Hmm.
This is where we should be. This
Yeah,
is what I go back to that point of trying me wanting to get to that point of having a whole bunch of young individuals that's in your same age range that we need to find those people that are able to do just what you do.
got you. Makes
Those are
complete
the
sense.
difference makers.
I would agree. Can't refute that. Just speaking the truth right there.
Yes, sir. Those are the
Hmm.
difference makers. And see, this is why I think those that are watching this show tonight should realize one thing that when they see Craig Chavis's name, don't care where they see it, they know that they saw you here. They got the chance to know who you are, and they know the things that you do. That they should be seeking you out to help them to get to the same level.
No doubt. 100%.
That's what I'm talking about.
Yes, sir.
That's
Agreed.
how we build our community.
100%. Perfectly said, brother.
Yes, sir. So, how do you stay updated with the latest trends and strategies in business coaching?
Me, I mean, I'm very well read. I mean, you see this bookshelf behind me. I've read every single book here. And of course, I'm tapped into different communities, different Slack channels. But I'm also very well networked, and I travel. I go to conferences, and I like to stay plugged in. So for me, it's reading books. It's staying on top of my network. Having conversations with other thought leaders. I have my mentors. I also teach, so I'm learning from people. So I'm constantly learning, teaching, applying. So that's how I stay on top of the game.
Okay. And see, that's another thing. You know, I think we've gotten away from the reading.
Hmm.
I think for some of us now, especially when you got all these different places now, these different states where they trying to burn books, they trying to ban books, they don't want people to read, you know. But I think a lot of us that's got small libraries like yours, and I've got a nice sized library.
Hmm.
And so when I go and I want to get a book off the shelf, I go and get that book and I sit down, and when I start in it, and it's just like it takes me to a whole nother place.
Hmm.
And so, but my thing is like I always like to get stuff away from what I read. So I need to learn
Hmm.
because I'm never too old to learn. I
No,
don't know
great.
everything. I don't know everything. I'll be the first to tell you that. If I ever met somebody that said they know everything, I'm running away from them real quick.
Agreed. No, I agreed, man. And that'll be a great way to wrap this up because actually I got to run real soon. So, but yeah, I mean, like you said, reading does transport you to another place, and like that focus, that discipline is something that is lacking. But like if you can read a book, absorb it, and then apply it, it takes you to a whole new level.
Okay. Well, let me ask you this one last question here, and I guess we'll close out the show. What are the key skills required to be a successful consultant?
Um, let's give three. Number one is empathy because this is a human centered business. If you're not empathetic, people will suss you out and you will fail. So empathy is number one. Number two is resourcefulness. This is knowing how to connect the dots and get from point A to point B when you don't have a clear path. And if you can't do that, you won't make it in this business. And then thirdly is that you just have to be disciplined because there's going to be a lot of people with all these different programs, all these different suggestions, but you have to know what works for you and why it works for you. And you have to stay true to doing what you have to do to get the results that you need to get. So, being empathetic, being resourceful, and having discipline, those are my top three skills to be successful as a coach or a consultant.
So, in closing, is there any closing words that you'd like to leave our audience with?
Yeah. Number one is stay the course. Life is difficult, it's windy, but if you stay the course, you will be blessed for it. Secondly, as I said this before, time is gold and money is silver. Time's your most precious asset. Use your time wisely, but don't be afraid to take calculated risks, especially like when you're young, because you're not going to get that time back. And I can't tell you how many people I've ran into that have said that they regret not doing things when they could have, when they were younger. So, two, time is gold, money is silver. Um, and then, thirdly, the last thing I would say is that fail is just a first attempt in learning. People are scared to fail, but like trying and not getting the result you want is not a bad thing because you're doing something for the first time. So you're inevitably going to make a mistake. But the key thing is that you don't make that mistake over and over again. So those are my parting words for this conversation.
Well, I'd like to thank you for spending some time with us and educating our audience a whole lot about the things that you do. I really do appreciate that. For those of you that are watching on the YouTube channel, please hit the subscription button. Also, hit the notifications button in case you do miss a show. You're always able to come back and watch it. I'd like to
Mhm.
thank you, Craig, for spending some time with us.
You're welcome.
sharing your knowledge because it's very, very valuable and very, very important. And we will see you all tomorrow evening. Please have a great evening, and we will see you all tomorrow. Have a good night.